Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Ross on Cars. I'm Ross Furlong and this is a Land Rover Discovery 5 HSE Dynamic R. Right, so the Land Rover Discovery 5, it's the last of the big Land Rovers that I've reviewed recently, the new Range Rover, the new Defender, the new Range Rover Sport. And to be honest, I wasn't really that fussed about reviewing this. I almost didn't bother. Came out in 2017. When it came out as a previous Discovery 4 owner, I wasn't really that fussed about the looks, to be honest, and that's why I'm around the back of this one to start with. These asymmetric kind of looks, the offset number plate, caused a bit of controversy when it came out and led to quite prominent motoring journalists being quite rude about the looks of the back. But I think they have aged really well. I really quite like the look of the back of this. I think it gives it a bit of personality, just something a little bit different. And credit to Joey McGovern, head of design at Land Rover. It has aged really well. I think, just generally speaking, the car does look nice. My first impression of it was big, just really big. They said it was a bit bulbous from the side when it first came out, but actually, again, I think it's kind of grown into its looks a bit. We do have the Discovery 6 coming out next year, so it'll be interesting to see how they move on from this. They haven't really changed the design since 2017, though they have sort of upgraded it. There was a kind of a midlife upgrade, which meant some of the stuff on the inside, particularly the tech, has improved. This one I've been driving around for about 3 days. I took it up to see the mighty Manchester City yesterday and back. Didn't have to fill up. Seen figures around about 700 miles on a tank. It's got 89 litre tank, I think, diesel. It's a D300, 300 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 in 6.8, 130 miles an hour. And it just kind of wafts along. It's got that real waftability that the Discovery 4 had. It's a big, heavy 4x4, but, it does a really good job. My son really likes it in the back. Seems to be lots of room. You get all the dogs in, bikes. There's lots of bike packs. You can see it's the family car. That's how they positioned it over the years, from through to 4 and 5. And also they've got a bit of a conundrum now, because despite its popularity up to about 2016, they haven't really sold many of these since. Back in 2015, I was looking at the figures, they sold as many of these as they did with Range Rovers, pretty much. But since then it's declined. I think it was about 12,000 of them sold last year, compared to 110,000 Defenders. So the new Defender, has really eaten the lunch of the Discovery. And it'd be interesting to see how Land Rover position it next year when 6 comes out. But meanwhile, I think this does still, even now, as a sort of an older model, pose a sort of a good proposition. For me, it's always been a bit of a stealth Range Rover, really. It can do everything the Range Rover can do. It's just as luxury. It's big, but it doesn't have the image of the Range Rover, and it's a lot more low key. So it looks much better in the countryside, I think. It kind of fits in better. My wife doesn't make jokes about hedgehogs, which she does whenever I mention a Range Rover. So yeah, I think it still has that kind of appeal of go anywhere, do anything luxury 4x4. And you can see when you're inside it that they really have managed to give it that kind of luxury feel, while still maintaining the Land Rover-y kind of look to it. So getting into Discovery 5 is very nice. Such a massive door, and it's so high up that you can just sort of slide your backside onto the seat and close the door, and you sort of just step down out of it when you get out. So for me, that's very good. It just the sheer size of it suits me. I feel quite like I've got a lot of space in here. And just generally speaking, although this is a model from 2017, updated of course in 2010, it does feel reasonably modern in here. I don't really notice the difference between the more modern Defender and the Range Rover particularly, though maybe some of the buttons on the steering wheel are starting to look a little bit old hat now. But the entertainment system is just the same. You get the same kind of 3 area media unit here with nav, phone, media. This one being the HSE Dynamic R. It's well spec'd. It's got a Meridian sound system. It's got a kind of a double panoramic roof there. The seats, I did moan a little bit about the Defender's seats. I didn't like them that much. These ones are back to what the Discovery 4s were, really. Almost not quite throne-like, but very, very comfortable, very adjustable, big, cosseting. Yeah, very, very comfortable seats. No complaints there, and lots of room in the back. My son loved being in the back of it. It's nice just being this high up, really. You do feel like you're up in the sort of transit van kind of area of height when you're cruising along the motorway. And it's got a massive, massive boot, obviously, on the back, so you can fit all sorts of stuff. Remember, I moved a sofa in my Discovery 4 once. That was it was remarkable what you could get in the back of a Discovery 4. I don't think it's quite that big as or quite that square as the old Discovery, but yeah, it does. Once you drive it around, I've been driving it around for a few days, as I said, and you do start to get that feeling of Discovery 4. It's definitely got the DNA of the 4, which was so popular. And like I said, it's just all quite stealth, and yeah, I don't think people find it offensive when they're confronted with a Discovery 5. I think in a way it's quite sweet, that's just sort of a big old Land Rover. So, but there's a few things I wanted to say about how it drives. So let's take it out on the road, and I'll show you what it can do. Right, so let's go. I do feel that the gear lever here is a little bit, I don't know, not ergonomic. Is that a way of putting it? It doesn't feel, it's not the best kind of gear lever, but it's kind of very simple. It kind of works. I do love the way they've got these two cubby holes down here, which are for charging your phone, and also for you can put your wallet next to it. So that was perfect for me. I just got the two things that I normally bring into the car. There's a spot for them. So, okay, it's big. It's true. It's quite wide for these country lanes, but I haven't really found it, much of a problem. It kind of, like the Discovery 4, really, it just kind of sucks up the bumps. Very nice to just cruise. Very supple kind of ride. Kind of bounces over bumps, and it's very relaxing to drive if you're not doing it, too fast, too much of trying to get too much of a wiggle on. These are the sorts of roads it was designed for, really. These sort of country roads. I've done a little bit of off-roading. Hardly call it that, but yeah, I mean, you don't get stuck in the bog, as it were, if you have to go onto a field. With me, just to turn this thing around, sometimes I need to go into some sort of field setup. So, and the visibility of this machine, I mean, I can see everything. I can hardly see the sides of the car here. The windscreen's so big and so up tall that you can just see absolutely everything. You have to make sure that you do put the middle headrest down, though, on the behind you. Otherwise, you can't see a damn thing out the back. But yeah, and when you put your foot down, I mean, it's the D300, 300 brake horsepower, 8-speed gearbox. It's kind of just effortless, really. It's really effortless is the best way I can describe it. I haven't really felt particularly tempted to hustle this along. I mean, on the motorways, you can go as fast as you like. Really, it doesn't feel slow. I mean, it's 2.5 tons, and it'll do 0 to 60 in not much over 6.5. So it's got plenty of oomph. But it's not that sort of car, really. It's not shoving the back car. It's kind of just effortless. Someone described it as having an elastic band attached to an elastic band pulling you towards the horizon. That's the kind of the feel of it. And I think, rather like this very good chap here, that when they see one of these things coming, people a lot of the time tend to get out of the way of it. There we go. This is a test on this road because there's so few places to turn that that it becomes difficult to pass. So this chap's trying to find somewhere. I don't think that's going to do it really because I'm so massive. I'm going to go back and see if I can find a spot because it's going to be. I know this road very well, and it's very difficult to find places to pass. So I suppose that's something to bear in mind if you're thinking of buying a car like this. If you're going down very narrow country roads a lot of the time, you might want to get a smaller one. This is a particularly bad road though, for passing. I do like when you reverse, you get the full 360 view in this HSE Dynamic R. So you get that kind of like almost like a drone hovering above you type look, which is great. You can see all four corners, which you kind of need in a car like this. You need to be able to see everything that's going on when you're reversing. So you can really rely on that to tell you what's going on. The ride is quite interesting actually. I think, you know, I would say from memory that the Defender 110, in terms of how it rode on these A roads, was just a little bit tighter, almost a little bit. It felt like a little bit sportier. The 110 I had, it didn't roll quite as much. This feels a little bit more wallowy than the 110. So I don't know whether dynamically they've upped their game a little bit. It's not enough to sort of put you off buying it, but it is noticeable. I think that the ride quality is different, and I'll be looking forward to the 6 rather, and just to see what they come up with in terms of ride quality there, because I think there's room for improvement based on their newer products. I think they've done something with the chassis setup on their newer products that is maybe a step forward from this. I like that kind of clamshell bonnet, which reminds me of my old Disco 4. And these heating controls down here are really easy to work. So the fan, the temperature, you can do your seats, heat your seats with those. It's all on one kind of button, which is great. You don't have to fiddle around with a screen to do that stuff. So it'll pull if you need it to pull. Get a wiggle on. So what have you got? You've got this. If this is a family vehicle, I suppose the market leader in that area is the XC90, the Volvo, which we actually had for a while. So I know all about that car. I would say that this car for me anyway, personally, I feel like a bit more involved in it. I kind of almost feel like it has a bit more personality than the Volvo. Volvo's a great car, obviously, but you know, it was a bit of a, you know, when we gave it back, I didn't really care about it. Going back, this one is kind of growing on me, really. This could be a car for me, which is really surprising, considering I barely bothered to test drive it. I thought to myself, I'm not going to bother with this. It's not really for me. But you know, I'm definitely going to wait and see what the Discovery 6 looks like though before I get into the idea of maybe buying one of these. But I would buy one of these. I didn't say that about the 110. I didn't say that about the Sport. The Range Rover I love, but it's a different level. The Range Rover. It's a proper luxury car. Someone described it as an S-Class Mercedes on stilts. So Whereas this isn't, it's not trying to be anything, this car. It's just sort of a, I mean, it's expensive, it's luxurious, but it's not trying to be anything, if you see what I mean. It's, if anything, it's a bit too self-effacing for its own good. And I mean, the 110, sometimes people accuse that of being looking like a bit of a fashion accessory. I kind of get that. It's quite design led, isn't it? It's quite a designery car, the 110. Whereas this isn't trying to be anything in that regard. It's just, chuck the kids in, chuck the dog in, put the bikes on the back, off you go, 700 miles. Does everything that you need it to. So isn't it funny, you have preconceptions about cars, but until you drive them, you don't really know. Lesson to myself and anybody else, I think. I didn't want a Tesla. I had no interest in Teslas, and then I drove one, and now I have one. So it really, there's only so far you can go until researching them, and then you just got to drive them. And then, if I was sat there with the keys to the, let's say, a second-hand Range Rover, the new one, at about 75,000, or this, maybe a new one of these, that would be interesting. Which set of keys would I grab? I don't actually know. That would be the dilemma. The sport keys and Defender keys, well, I wouldn't bother with those. I know a lot of people like them, nothing wrong with them, but just not for me. So there you go. But enough waffling on from me. Last thing to say, quite good deals on these. I think they're looking 5.9% on APR on PCP at the moment. And I dare say there might be some good deals to be had in the run-out models before the 6 comes in next year. So I would keep an eye on those if you're in the market for this sort of car. Anyway, thanks for listening, and hopefully see you next time. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Ross on Cars. If you did, press like down below and subscribe, because I've got lots of interesting cars coming up this autumn. Hope to see you next time.